this last meeting I went prepared with sales comps and no, with comps,
Mhm.
and I kind of walked out of there with nothing.
Tell me more. It wasn't the bad thing isn't that you brought comps, right? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you walked out like what happened during it?
Well, this one was it's a listing for lease, right? It was a 17,000 square foot building for lease. I thought I was gonna go in there, take him comps, tell him, hey, you know what, it could lease for this amount, for $22 a square foot. He
Yep.
was pushing 28, like if it was like a class A building. Yeah, pretty much that's the number he was at, and he wanted me to go to get more comps, pretty much.
Okay.
And that's where we're at on that.
So what I just want to understand something. Just to be clear, you're going on Monday to try to list this property for sale. So, okay, let's talk about it. When you're dealing with trying to get a listing, the biggest thing you have to realize is that people want to do business with people they like. When you just bring comps and you're too dialed in on the numbers, which I've been that way, okay? I'm very numbers oriented. Sometimes you forget that it's a personal relationship because people are going to do business again with people they like, not necessarily the person who gives them the best data. It's a lot of people they like, number one, and then number two, they feel like they feel confident that the individual can solve their problem. Now, let me explain something here, okay? When I say the word problem, right, and you're going to quote bring them a solution to this. Their problem is that they think they're going to get X dollar per square foot, as an example. Like on your last case, he had 28 in mind, right? Because if you go to this
Yeah.
guy and say, like, what do you think the price per square foot is for this building? Like, what do you think the price is?
So they're going 145 to 275 a square foot for sale.
145 to 275. What do you think this one's going to land at?
I haven't seen the building. I haven't
Okay.
seen the
I mean, I'm
numbers or
just
anything.
estimating roughly.
It's we could say 200.
Okay, so you're going to say roughly 200. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens if he says 275? Well, Bob's property down
Well,
the street sold for 275. I want 275.
yeah. I mean, usually what I tell them is we could list it at 275 and see what the market says.
When you said that last time to the guy who wanted 28 a foot, when you said it was, 22 a foot, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. He was just saying that. No, he was just stuck at 28. twenty-eight
But I'm
dollars
saying,
a
okay,
square
so
foot.
let's list it for $28 a foot. Let's get the paperwork done, and we're gonna, and say la vie. What happened?
Okay. Yeah, I should have done that then.
Well, because like, look, when I say the word problem, okay, what happens a lot of the time is the agent who gives them the price that they want, right, tells them the price that they want, typically gets the listing. I'm not saying sells the property, but gets the listing a large percentage
Okay.
of the time. Because when
Okay.
you're fighting on listings, right, you're either fighting on dollars, right, or you're fighting on knowledge, right, and experience or whatever. You fight on knowledge and experience, or you fight on dollars, right? And most
Okay.
of the time, people care less about this unless you're dealing with a huge organization than they do telling me the right number, right? And also, the other part of knowing, like, getting to like you, kind of trust you, kind of thing. If you're fighting this hard, right? Like, well, I think it's this, but they think it's this, right? This discrepancy, right, is going to cause animosity and then not to like you. And they're also going to think that you're not knowledgeable about the market. So when
Okay.
I'm at a presentation, when you go to a presentation to try to list a property for sale, what you want to try to do is the following. What I try to do is like say, like, listen, we're today's agenda, right? Let's say, like, what I'd like to do today is X, Y, Z, right? Like, so you set an agenda, okay? You say one, two, three. Like, I'm going to dive into these few things today, right? By the end of this, we're going to have a decision to make, whether that's to list the property with me or to not take, or I choose not to take your listing. One of two, two things are going to, at the very end, you're going to basically have a choice. And I'm going to have a choice, right? You're going to be able to you say, yeah, you're going to taking a listing. I'm also going to have the option to take the listing or not based on where you want to be. These three things, like, one, I'd like to walk the property with you. Number two, I'd like to learn more about what your goals are. And then number three, we're going to talk about the numbers. Other than these three things, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss today? No. It's almost 100% of the time, no. But the cool thing about this is that, did I say my marketing plan? Did I say my, my experience of how many properties I sold? Any of that? No, I didn't say any of that. I don't need to say any of that. These are the only three things
Yeah.
that matter, right? I want to walk the property to understand what I'm about to try to sell. I want to understand their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. I want to try to get his number first, ideally, right? And then we're going to talk about the numbers. Now, let's say you walk the property, everything goes super well, okay? Right? Like, and by the way, I take notes. Like, look, what I like to try to do here is I like to take a walk around the property. You're more than welcome. I'd love for you to join me and kind of give me an understanding of, point things out if you can. I'm just going to take some notes here on my phone. Is that okay? Great. I just don't want you to think I'm texting. And then we walk around, and that entire time while you're doing your walk, it's a whole about rapport, okay? You're just going to try to build as much rapport as you possibly can. You want to build a ton of rapport, get to know him a little bit, get him laughing, get you laughing. You want to, get him to like you. That's the whole point of the walk. It's not don't
Okay.
rush the walk. I don't care if the building's 1,000 fucking feet. Don't rush the
Okay.
walk because it's your time to connect, right?
Okay.
It's connection and rapport. That's what this whole and the entire purpose of that is, okay?
Okay.
Connection and rapport. Now, you've done your walk. Now we're going to talk about his goals. I'd like to be in a place where we can sit, ideally. If you can't sit, then I'd say I like to stand. Somewhere where it's quiet, okay, and he's away from any distractions. Again, ideally, if you could sit in like his office or anything like that, that's all fine too. What I like to say is like, so Bob, if you can, I'd really like to get an understanding of what your goals are. Like, why are you selling it? Why are you even, what got you interested in selling it? What are you interested in selling the property for? Like, I'd love to get just like a little bit more of an understanding of where your head's at with everything. So I want to see like, when we go over the numbers, I want to see if like we're even thinking the same way here. I get to hear from him what his goals are. He's gonna
Yeah.
say, I want to retire. Like, what's this guy's reason? Do you know? He wants to buy that piece of
He,
land.
he wants to go to that area because I guess there's more traffic. It's a newer area.
Okay, great. So like he wants to reinvest. That's awesome. Tell me more about why you want to reinvest. Like, what's your future goals? Like, oh, well, I want to buy a lot of property. I want to be a developer. I want to do this. I'm a developer. Whatever. You get to know. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Right. So tell me more about the piece of land you're buying. Okay, and he goes into depth. He's like, oh, well, I want to build townhouses. I want to go do whatever. Blah blah blah. Right. Okay, cool. So then tell me, like, why do why do you need to sell? Why do you need? Why do you? I'd say either want. And sometimes, if you use the word need unnecessarily, they'll get annoyed about it. So you can say, why do you want to sell the property? Tell me what has you wanting to sell this property. He's going to give you like, oh, well, I want to reinvest the money. Okay, cool, whatever. You're reconfirming. And then another question when it comes to goals, like, tell me your timeline. Like, how soon are you looking to get this property sold? Okay, timeline, time frame. Tell me what's your timeline in getting this property sold. How soon would you like this property sold? He's going to tell you. I was like, okay, great. Last question when it comes to your goals. Ideally, in a perfect world, how much money? To walk away with, by the way. Very important here. How much money would you like to walk away with at closing from the sale?
Okay.
Ideally, how much money would you like to walk away with from the sale? And then he's going to basically say like, oh, I don't know, I will look. I need at least 800,000 for my next project, right? I need at least $2 million for my next project. Okay, great. I'm getting a framework, right, of understanding. Or he's going to say, I need $5 million. What's going to happen here, though, is that I'm immediately going to get an understanding of like, is this guy motivated to sell? Is this guy even in a ballpark of which we think that we can make some money together? Or am I completely wasting my time? Now, again, personally for me, I don't take listings. I personally don't take a lot of listings. I don't believe, I think a lot of them are a complete waste, right? Now there's a place and time for listings, but I just personally choose to not take them a lot of the time. These are questions that I like to ask people on the phone. And then when he tells me, as an example of this guy, let's say, again, it's 12,000 feet. Let's say the guy wants $5 million. Be completely
Yeah.
ridiculous. But if he tells me over the phone, like, look, I'm looking for like 1.5 million, I'm like, I'm gonna go drive to this guy's property right away, right? Or I'm gonna try to get this guy an offer right away, right? Like, I don't need to go list the property for sale in order to sell something. But anyways, like, what this allows you to do is that this allows me to control the next part of the conversation, which is if he tells me a crazy number, my follow-up question to this, almost no matter what, is essentially, can you tell me about how did you come up with that number? Can you tell me about how you came up with that number? Oh, okay. Right. And by the way, I don't say great. Like when someone responds to me with the numbers, like, well, I'm looking to walk away with $2 million. Okay. Can I just ask you how you came up with that number? Okay, great. Okay. How, can you tell me more about how you came up with that number? It's not, I don't want to reaffirm that he's in the range, right? Like saying, okay, great, when he says 5 million would be silly. Because
Okay.
it's not great. So your language matters. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you came up with that number? And then he's going to go into it a little bit. Again, at any point he gets like a little bit frustrated or start talking about numbers. Like, oh, well, what do you think it's worth? I'm like, well, it's a great question, and I brought some comparables that I'd like to discuss with you, but I just want to get a little bit more clarity from you about your situation before I start diving into the numbers. Because if I just start rattling off certain numbers, right? It's not like, first off, I never walked the property before today, so like again, me coming into this completely fresh, right? Just like anybody would. If I told you numbers before today, it would be completely off, right? But all I want to do is go through these comps with you, and I want you to tell me, I like to do that with people, right? If I'm ever doing comps with them. So when you're doing the numbers, I was like, what I like to try to do is run through the comps together. Now, what this allows me to do is control his emotions because he's going to talk about like, okay, which comps of here? Okay, I brought what I'll always do, by the way. I'll pull all of the sales comps. I don't pick and choose which ones are better or worse. I bring everything. And I just bring all the sales comps. I don't care if I try to bring it between like 10 and 30 properties.
So what I do is I just put it on an Excel spreadsheet, and I put like 5 to 10. on an Excel spreadsheet, but just
The
the
problem
price
when
per
you do an
square foot.
Excel spreadsheet and you choose is that you sometimes will eliminate the one that they were thinking about comparing their property to. So I like to just give them all of them. Like, listen, and I do this on purpose though, right? So I just go, here is every single property. Every property. There's no I didn't filter any criteria. This is every retail property. Okay, I'm not going to pull industrial shopping. I'm not going to pull an industrial building or an office building or a hotel or something like that because we're talking about a shopping center right now as an example, right? I pulled every shopping center, every retail property that has sold in the last 12 months. All right, because if it sold 2 years ago or 5 years ago, it's not comparable to today. Is that fair to say? Yes. Great. What we're going to do is we're going to choose together, not me versus you, like us together on the same team. We're going to choose our most likely to be comparable, right? You know, our ideally 2 to 3. You know, sometimes I say 3 to 5, right? The most comparable properties of this sort, and we're going to do it together because what I want to try to do is I want them to see how I view things, and I want to see how they view things because they're going to be like, oh, the property down the street that they're comparing themselves to that sold for $5 million, maybe it was 15,000 square feet. Well, this one sold for 300 and something dollars a foot. I want to get that kind of price. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, as you can clearly see, this was rented, you know, as a, you know, this was a triple net triple net lease deal with XYZ Fortune 500 company. Your property's vacant. Can you see how those would be possibly different values? And what this also allows me to do is control the conversation in totality where we never argue about value.
You're pulling comps based off of what it's sold. Usually when I do the comps, it's based off of what's on the market right now. So
No,
on the market.
does not matter. Sold only. Do not ever use active sale for sale properties, ever.
So what I'm finding on CoStar is some say like, for example, 100K.
Undisclosed. Texas is very tough. Texas is a non-disclosure state. But if you bring listed like for sale comps, they might never sell. So what I would tell you to do, okay, very important to understand this, okay? I understand that Texas is a pain in the ass. Non-disclosure states suck, okay, when you're trying to
Yeah.
find sale comps. I would rather you do a larger radius or go farther back in time than pull no sale comps. This is every single sale comp that has been disclosed within the last 3 years in a 10-mile radius. I'd rather you do that than only pull for sale comps because you are always going to have you're going to have a problem if you just show me for sale comps. I don't give a shit.
Minimum,
Listen,
how many sales comps minimum?
minimum, I like to. I mean, look. If you get
10 to 30?
look, 5 to 10 is fine. It's fine.
Okay.
All I'm trying to tell you though is that I would rather very easily. By the way, okay, this doesn't have to be complicated. You literally can just bring your phone and you can go on CoStar. I mean, it's really cool. You can do it live with them, by the way, and you can just do all the sorting with them live. You can be like, hey, here's your subject property. I'm just going to do a quick 10-mile or 15-mile search. Properties that were sold in the last 2 years. And all you and I are going to do is we're going to find the best comparable properties together. I just want to show you the data that real estate agents can see. And instead of me bringing you what I feel like is going to be the best comparable comps, I want to show you how I would do it with you, right? Just like I would do with my family. Here's everything. And then you have you have all these different properties. And you can say, look, Texas is a non-disclosure state, which means that they don't have to actually disclose what the property sold for. So you can see that all these properties say undisclosed. So these are impossible to compare our property to. Wouldn't you agree? Because there's no information here. So for you and I to say like, oh, well, this was listed at $3 million, it could have sold for it could have sold for $1. We have no idea. So for me to try to say, well, this one was listed for $3 million, we should list yours for $3 million, even though that was a 10,000 square foot property, yours is 10,000 square feet, would be misleading you. Does that make sense? But what I can tell you is that these properties are all disclosed. So let's look at the most comparable price disclosed properties, and let's choose the best and most comparable ones. Okay, well, this one works, and this one works. Great. We have 3 properties. They all range between $175 and $225 a foot. Where do you think we should list your property? Now, see how I'm not, there's no combativeness. But when I come in saying, hey, here are the 3 sales comps that I'm looking at, I think your property's worth, $175 a foot, which could be justified. But because the way you do go about it and display your information to them can look like it's misleading, right? Because in his head, he might have 200 a foot. Because you can't assume that they don't know as much as you. Because sometimes there are property owners who know way more than you. They're like, I know that John sold for 6, he sold for 4, Steven sold for 3, and they might know all this information. So you assuming that they know nothing sometimes can shoot you in the foot. Is this making sense so far?
Yeah, it makes sense.